All right. Thank you for joining us this evening for the October 13th, 2022 Monte Sereno Better Streets Commission meeting. Before the meeting is called to order, I would like to point out a few house rules to assist the commissioners, staff, and members of the public to successfully participate in this meeting. Commissioners, your microphone is live, so please keep your microphones on mute until you wish to speak. For tonight's meeting, we are using Zoom to host the Better Streets Commission meeting. At the bottom of the Zoom client, there are two icons, chat and raise hand. Please use chat only to report technical issues such as being unable to hear a commissioner speaking. Please use raise hand to be recognized by the chair and enabled to speak to the commissioners. To comment under oral communication or on any agenda item, you are allowed 3 minutes to speak per agenda item. Emails limited to 350 words can also be submitted to the city engineer and will be read into the record. This word limit is set to adhere the typical 3 minutes time allowance. Only attendees using Zoom application can use the raise hand option to comment. Participants calling in from a telephone will only be able to listen and cannot provide any feedback or public comment. Lastly, because we're not all in the same room, all votes in this meeting will be taken by roll call. Give me 1 second here.
Do we go ahead and do the roll call now? Do you have any other announcements?
I believe you can go ahead and call the meeting to order.
Okay, I'll call the meeting to order at 7:11 p.m. And please go ahead and do a roll call.
Okay. Commissioner Chaffin?
Here.
Please let me know if I'm mispronouncing your last name.
Close enough.
Commissioner Nelson?
Here.
Commissioner Lapcevic?
Here.
And then I believe Commissioner Saxinen is absent today.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Orders of the day. Introduction of a youth commissioner. Do we have a new youth commissioner who didn't make it to the meeting?
Yes, we had a commissioner who was supposed to come in, but he didn't actually show up to the youth commission meeting. So I do apologize for this. I actually work with our youth commissioners, and I can let you know that they've decided to do rotate within them. So they've already selected, they've already selected a date that they wish to attend the meeting. So I'm not sure as to the reason for this commissioner that volunteered for today, but I do apologize. But you will be seeing our youth commissioners part of the meetings from here on, well, after today.
Okay, great. Presentations. I'm not even sure what that is. I don't remember what that is.
Yeah, I don't think there's any presentations today.
Okay. Oral communications. I guess, do we have any members of the public that wanted to speak at the, I believe that's what that is.
Right. I don't see any.
Okay. Any written communication from the public?
I don't believe we've received any written communication.
Okay. All right. So the next item is the consent calendar, which is approving the minutes, the SeeClickFix update, and the consideration of future teleconferencing meetings. Although I believe you or Don said we were likely to go to a hybrid meeting next time.
Yes. So if we're going hybrid, we still need to, consider the item number 3. So that way it allows for folks to continue to, if you want to continue virtual, you have that option. But if you want to come in person to the chambers, that's also allowed. So we want to make sure we keep that updated.
Okay. So does anybody want to discuss any of these items on the consent calendar?
No, but in making a motion, do we need to somehow acknowledge that change in number 3 to go to a hybrid meeting? Because if we just approve this as it is, does that mean they're all going to be virtual?
No.
How do we do that?
So this helps it stay virtual as well as hybrid. So I believe this is perfectly fine.
Okay.
So if you go ahead and make a motion to approve all items on the consent calendar, that will.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll make a motion to approve all the items on the consent calendar.
Thank you. Bob, are you able to second that?
I'm about to second that. Can I second that motion?
Great,
will
thank
go-
you.
I can go ahead and take a roll call. Commissioner Nelson,
Yes.
Commissioner Sheffin,
Yes,
and Commissioner Lapcevic.
Yes.
Motion passes 3-0.
all right, thank you. Unfinished business, do we have any unfinished business?
None listed.
Okay. There's, if I can briefly mention Bruce Avenue, Don, have you had any I'm not asking for any updates, but are you aware that there's a lot of activity going on Bruce Avenue? And is that something you've even looked at this point in time?
I have not been out there, Commissioner. I have been told that that area is the candidate for a future capital improvement project. When you say a lot of activity, what are you?
I mean, there were some pedestrian safety improvements that were going to be made there at the same time that the street was redone. I don't believe any of that was going to happen until deep into next year. Maybe
Yeah,
somebody
I
else
thought
can
that was-
comment.
Yeah, I thought that was over a year away.
Yeah, so it's nothing that needs to be worried about now, but I just, if you think you're going to be here long-term, Don, that is something that we'll want to look at, the specific safety improvements, way down the road.
And can I ask 2 questions? Because in the minutes for the last meeting, it talked about the pavement improvement work starting in September, October. Has that started? Do we know? For this year?
It has not, but not by much. It's scheduled to start Wednesday next week.
Oh,
I
okay.
sent an email. I think Clausy sent it out.
I actually
listing
I
the
resent it again.
streets.
Yeah, I went ahead and resent it to your guys's personal
Other
email as
emails?
well. So
Okay.
so I've gone ahead and resend everything. Mhm.
And then I
So-
just had one other question with respect to the One Bay Area Grants 3 for the submittal. I think we were supposed to hear back by the middle of October. Have we heard anything regarding that or no? I know we're not quite in the middle yet, but
Would you say what it is again? And that's an answer to your question, which is I haven't heard anything.
oh, okay.
not
Well,
sure
then
what it is,
because I
so.
think that Jessica submitted some proposals with respect to the One Bay Area grant. I think 3. That's what it was referred to in the minutes. And I think we were supposed to hear back whether the town got any grant money by the middle of October. So I guess if you haven't heard, then
Not
we
for a little
haven't
while.
heard.
Do you know what was the grant for? I don't recall.
I don't remember what it was for, but
Mhm.
if you look through the minutes, I just wrote down a little note
Mm.
because it didn't say what it was, but I think we were supposed to hear by the middle of October, but we're not
But
quite there yet.
Jessica indicated to me that there some grants that had been applied for were not approved, something about San Jose getting all the money.
Oh, well,
I
then
don't
maybe,
know if that's the
Oh.
program or not, but
oh, okay. Well, then maybe it was a no. Okay,
I will check on that.
okay. That was it.
All right. Thank you, Doreen, for those good questions.
May I just add with regard to the pavement improvement project that according to the contractor with whom I spoke yesterday, they look to being complete by the end of November. So
Okay.
it's starting to get cool and gets too cold, you can't pave, but best projection is that we should be able to finish that on the streets that were indicated on that list I sent. Thank you.
All right, new business. The bicycle and pedestrian plan, master plan update. So sadly, I've only been able to skim through this. And I wasn't around for the last meeting or where they met people at the city picnic. So does anybody have any comments or add any insight into what's going on here?
I did review it and I thought it was very well done and very helpful, especially at the end, seeing how the consultants prioritized which pedestrian and which bicycle improvements should be, ranked 1 through, 8 for each or whatever one it was. And I guess I don't know when is the appropriate time to discuss that, but a lot of it's probably going to have to do with funds. I mean, if we don't have the funds available, but I do think they did a good job, and it was pretty easy to understand and read.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we had a huge response with respect to the surveys, who responded and how much in terms of a percentage of residents who responded, but, they took what they could really, with respect to the comments and feedback that was given. So.
I mean, when you look at the map, I mean, it seems reasonable and makes sense. Yeah, I mean, funding is, I believe one of the main reasons to get this in place was so that when funding opportunities presented themselves, we would be ready.
Yeah, and that makes sense. That makes sense.
The one thing
Sorry,
yes,
go ahead.
No, please.
So I guess the question for me is, I know when we talked a couple meetings back and with Jess and everybody, that we were talking about Highway 9 had some Caltrans money coming in and they were slated to start doing some stuff in 23. Do we know if, and similarly around Dave's Avenue with some safe routes to school, there was some money going there, but do we know if any of the stuff that now has been put together by the consultants, will that be, I guess, read out to Caltrans or whoever's funding the safe route to school groupings to make sure that we're in alignment, I guess, or, where there's differences, this could be called out, so to speak?
Well, I don't necessarily have a good answer. My limited knowledge is with Caltrans is we need to stay on top of what they're doing. And as soon as we find out they have something planned, reach out to them.
Okay.
Because I think they tend to just decide what they're going to do and do it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think we have a ton of input into what they do.
But I mean, we can try if we know what's going on. Do you have a lot of experience with Caltrans over the years, Don?
I've had some. In fact, I was here when we provoked them into putting the signal in at Quito, by virtue of the number of accidents at that intersection.
Right.
So that was done in the 80s, but Caltrans, I think, first of all, they do move to their own priorities. And in fact, one of the challenges that I've been discussing with Steve is to get them to improve the level of maintenance along Highway 9. It lacks the beautification that it, in our view, should have, cleanliness, weeds, and so on. The second thing is that there is, and I can't speak in great detail, but I understand a segment of the Highway 9 frontage that needs or has been talked about for, and I think Jessica had actually put on Caltrans' table to do some additional bikeway sidewalk work. Caltrans did not react as the city had hoped to that request, and they sort of put it in their pocket and we'll get back to you. So one of the things that Steve has asked me to look into is that the Highway 9 work that has been previously promoted to Caltrans. But
Mm.
I think that the final thing is that, as has been said by both couple commissioners, the key to things is stay on top of have your list ready to go. But when and ready to go, by the way, may mean having a design complete, because normally it takes a period of time to get some of these projects designed and ready to go to either grant application or to certainly to construction, depending upon the nature of the grant. So the opportunities need to be managed as you have suggested and matched with funding.
Specifically with regards to the Highway 9 project, I was thinking there was a improvement project that was with additional sidewalks
Yes.
that was funded and just needed like the final approvals. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, but I think it was there was some kind of a glitch, that whether it was environmental or something else. I'll have to get back to you on that, Barry. But it was something that was a disappointment to Jessica and Steve, as I understand the story.
That would make sense if it's not moving forward, because I think it was basically designed and ready to go.
Yes, I think that's right.
Okay, so that's, I think that may be one answer to Bob's question. And then he asked, I don't think Safe Routes to Schools has any money to make improvements. I'm trying to remember if there was a funding source for Dave's Avenue improvements or not. There might be some Measure B money. Do you have any more detail on what you were talking about there, Bob?
No, I've got to go back to my notes and take a look and see as to where I got that piece from. But yeah, I'll do that before our next meeting, and we can bring it full form.
Okay. And that does remind me, I didn't see Measure B on the list of funding sources, which seems to me should be one of the major funding sources, potential funding sources. Are you familiar with, are you from Santa Clara County? Don, are you familiar with Measure B?
I am from Santa Clara County, but I have not played in the Measure B arena. That's when I was here, Measure B didn't exist, and I've been working on other kinds of things since that time.
Yeah. Unfortunately, now that I'm thinking about it, I do believe all the grants for the next several years were just recently given out. And so they're probably, even though it's a huge pot of money, there's probably not a short-term opportunity to get money from there, but it definitely something that we need to talk to the consultant about and make sure is put on this list.
Well, I think I'm looking at the proposed pedestrian projects, and I see Dave's Avenue #1 project from Poppy to Highway 9 at $328,000, give or take. So I presume that that's part of the Safe Routes to School that you're talking about.
That would be pretty much, yeah. I mean, the school's at Poppy, so yeah, that makes sense.
Other than, I don't understand where that money's coming from.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think what they did in the subsequent section of this report is list all the places where you might get funding. But again,
well, I think they just provided estimates of what they thought that project would cost, and they prioritize them, for pedestrian and bicycle, 1 through 8 or 10 or whatever it was, because when the funding comes in, you know, if you only have X amount of funding, then you can look for a project that's close to that amount. And I thought it was very helpful. I don't know if at some point it makes sense for us to go over all of those, you know, maybe not tonight, but to understand how much funding or what we might be able to apply for or what might come in.
Yeah, I'd
I'm not
second
sure
that.
we know, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the proposed bicycle projects. And again, the number one project is Dave's Avenue for $1.3 million plus. So that kind of money, I mean, it's not like it's money we can go apply for immediately. It's situational. And the sources, the potential sources, the consultant has listed in chapter 5 of the report. I
Yeah.
guess the thing that would seem appropriate is for the commission to weigh in on the priorities that are listed and whether they are consistent with your view of priorities and needs and consistent in nature with, and I know there's been some discussion about how the best way to do bike lanes and whether high visibility bike lane solutions like Winchester are appropriate or not. But again, the bottom line is to have the commission weigh in on these recommendations with your own agreement or suggested modifications.
That certainly makes sense. I did just notice something that kind of ties together Doreen's question and Bob's, and that is the Dave's Avenue pedestrian improvements. That was the OBAG or OBAG grant application. Now, maybe that was obvious to everybody, but it wasn't obvious to me till I just saw it here.
Oh, I did. So did that get denied?
No, that it doesn't say here, but that's the money I think Bob was talking about. That was going to be the source. So I do not know what happened there. So that's something.
That might be something to follow up on and figure out.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm thinking from previous discussions, it sounded like it was, you know, all that stuff, you know, over by the school and Poppy and Bruce, that it sounded like it was going to be able to happen, but obviously things change. I'm just curious if that's not going to happen. That's a bummer.
Well, I do know that those grants were very competitive. And so there were a lot of applications that weren't going to get funded.
Yeah.
I would be surprised if this got funded, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah. But Don can look into it, and I can also talk to the VTA because they administer that program and find out what's going on there. So maybe Don and I can chat offline.
Yeah, Jessica left me 12 pages of information about a variety of things. I was just looking for those to see if I could see what she said, because the thing that stands out in my recollection is she said that the recent grant approvals had all gone to San Jose, but I don't know if the Dave's project is in that collection, which I will find out.
Sounds like Monte Sereno didn't get anything.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Well, I have in my head that there were 3 grant applications and Monte Sereno did not get anything from those 3.
There was a round of grant applications. I know there was some discussion that not only did they only go to San Jose, but they only went to areas of concern, MTC's areas of concern, or areas of low income, because there was a 15% weighting for that category, and that was enough of a weighting that all the projects that were approved were over in the East San Jose area. I think that was OBAG, but I'm not sure. I think Don's suggestion of looking at these various projects and seeing if we agree with the prioritization is correct. I'm not sure I'm personally prepared to do that right now because I haven't had a chance to study this as much as I should have. So I'm not sure if Doreen and Bob have comments or if we have time to.
Well, I read it and I thought that the consultants did a good job, but with respect to actually parsing it out, you know, like pro and con of what they weighted or what they put as number 1 versus number 3. I don't know if I'm ready to, you know.
Yeah, it'd
give
be
too
good to
much
take a.
information on that. But is that something we could, is it too late to do it next? I mean, it sounds like we don't have any grant money or anything. Is that something that we could punt till next time and we can all do a little bit of homework and maybe Shalini will be here and we can all discuss, you know, if it makes sense.
Yeah, Don had some commentary on the timeline and when we talked earlier. Can you repeat that, Don?
Yes, the project calendar calls for the council adopting the final plan, including recommendations by the end of the calendar year. In order to do that, the council will meet in November, the 1st and the 15th, I believe, are the correct dates, and perhaps the first meeting or the first Tuesday in December. So the commission's recommendations to the council would need to feed into that time schedule opportunities, which puts it kind of a compress. Waiting to your next meeting, which would be normal meeting would be December's, would not work. Would it make sense to just do an extra meeting just for the purpose of that in a few weeks or something like that? I don't know if people are available. Yeah, I think an agreement amongst the commissioners to do your individual prioritization study on that issue of recommended projects, that's really the core issue. And be ready for a special meeting, like you say, in 2 or 3 weeks, so that you're able to get your recommendations to the city council at their meeting, let's say last in November or 1st in December.
I like that idea.
I'm in favor of it as well. Sounds great.
Maybe we send out a doodle poll to see, you know, give some dates that, you know, I don't know if that's something that Dawn can do, because I know Jessica used to do it, or just whatever dates the staff are available, throw out to us and see if we can get a quorum.
Good question. So this is something you guys would want in the second, let's say the second meeting of November. Would you guys would have to have something to present, right? Because if that's the case, we would need something to prepare, because we prepare the agenda. Where 1, 2, hold on.
Talking about the city council agenda.
Right, because that would go there, right?
Yes.
So let's see. We're gonna have the 8th and the 22nd. So at least I think we would need it by the 18th, right?
Of November.
Oh, sorry, because it'd be the 1st of November and the 15th. So I would need to post by the 11th. So yeah, so anywhere, you know, the second week of November, obtain whatever it is going to be going on the agenda to be presented to the council for the November 15th meeting.
Just to clarify, there's no December council meeting?
Yes, there is.
So, okay.
As far as I understand, there's definitely I believe the beginning of December we have the first
Mhm.
which is December 6th. I need to
Okay.
confirm that there is going to be one
Mhm.
on the 20th as well.
Mhm. But
I think Steve told me there probably is not one on the 20th.
That's why I'm saying I would lean to, anywhere from the, 15th of November or the 6th of December. And just know that I need at least by the Friday, if not sooner, just to prepare the packet.
mhm. So the 15th of November, what day did you say we would need to?
The latest I would need it, let's say the 10th, only because the 11th is the day that I need to post. And
Mhm.
my city attorney needs to review everything, my packet that gets
Mhm.
posted.
Okay.
So I think if you guys were to meet, you guys have the week of the 17th, of the 24th, and then you go
Mhm.
into the first week of November. I think you guys have at least a good 3 weeks. And then
So
it gives,
for the, pardon me,
so
for
it-
the council meeting on the 6th, what would be your not later than date for material ready to go?
the last week of November. Let's just put it that way. If you guys could
Okay.
get, because it would be on you, Dawn, then to prepare, your report that would go.
Right.
And that's something that then needs to also be reviewed and
I would vote for doing it sooner rather than later, once we get too close to the holidays. And I just think if we're going to stick in an extra meeting, we should probably try to do it within the next 3 weeks. You
Yeah,
know,
I think.
Yeah.
I just,
Agreed. Yeah, that's perfect.
So one thing, I guess, well, first of all, do any of you have any significant constraints the rest of this month, for example?
Just Halloween.
Just Halloween. Yeah, so maybe I can reach out to Shalini and Don and I could propose some dates next week. Next week, propose some dates and just
Perfect.
try to get it on the calendar. Does that seem reasonable, Don?
Yes.
Mhm.
if you're talking about, if you're talking about next week, I'm free almost any night. If you,
Mm. Well, I think I'm traveling the rest of this week, so I'm just getting it scheduled next week is what I meant. And we probably do. We need a week, give you a week's notice, anyways. Goizy,
Yes.
I'm really sorry that I don't know how to
it's
pronounce
okay.
your name.
I'm sorry for butchering your guys' name. We're even.
I'm sure. I'm sure I was just worse though.
I'll respond to anything that sounds similar.
Okay.
But yes, please.
You need 1 week because we've got to notice this meeting.
Right. So yes. So it's a special meeting. So I believe we don't have to. I can verify the time frame for that as well. So
Okay.
yeah, we can work on that. I believe just let me know what dates you and Don want to come up with and then confirm. I think we have enough time, especially if you guys want to maybe schedule something in the week of the 24th. I don't believe we have any meetings for that week.
Okay. Let's have that be a tentative target. That sounds good.
Yeah.
I'll just let you, the only night I can't do it is that Thursday night because I'm going to be on an airplane.
So
But
no
other than
third.
that,
Yeah. So I mean,
I'm fine.
yeah, if Tuesday nights work for everybody, I mean, I think the 25th probably would be something for you guys to consider.
I could probably make that work. I'm out of town, but I'm happy to, if it's Zoom, I can do it. So that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Tuesdays are good for me.
If that works for everybody else.
Yeah, that's open on my calendar. Let me reach out to Shalini before it's official, but I'll send her a message tonight.
Perfect.
And you guys would be interested in 7 o'clock as well?
That's a good time for me. But I'm very flexible.
Yeah, that's fine.
No, that works for me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then, Don, do you know the process for working with the consultant to change the actual document, or is that something you would do?
I think if I have the desires of the commission and it would seem to me it would perhaps be a supplement to that plan. So the council could see those original recommendations the consultant has
Mhm.
and how you propose or recommend changes or or agreement.
I think
So
that actually that makes
at
good
the end
sense.
of the day, I'm sorry.
No, I think
Let's
that
say
makes really good sense.
at the end of the day, I think the final document revision would happen after the council makes their adoption.
Okay.
Okay.
So what I would see in the package to the council from you folks would be, again, comments with respect to what the report says, that what the original report goes to council, then they could concur with you or add to their own ideas.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. That seems like a very reasonable way to move forward. Okay, with that, are we ready to move on?
I think so.
Okay. Unless somebody, yeah, okay, let's go ahead and move on. The next is the Santa Clara Valley Transportation Authority countywide local and included in the Santa Clara Valley Transportation Authority, the local road safety plan. Did you want to introduce this, Don?
Very
Or-
brief,
Yeah.
very briefly by saying that according to the staff report Jessica prepared, this was scheduled for adoption by VTA on October 6th. I was unable to find out if that in fact happened, but I think what that translates to is this is provided to you at this meeting at this time as information. Certainly, if you folks have any comments or with regard to it, that's fine. But this county-wide program at this point is, we've had our input previous to this, presumably in
Mhm.
some fashion or other. I mean, there's a TAC, and I think one of you folks goes to the a meeting for
Yeah, I
VTA.
go to the BPAC meeting.
Right.
Mhm.
So that being said, if there's any questions or issues that the council has, having looked at this report, I'd be pleased to know of those and to take any action appropriate. But this, what you're looking at, presumably has been adopted as you see it.
Do we need to take any action?
No,
No.
there is none indicated in Jessica's staff report. And just from a logic standpoint, this being on the VTA agenda for October 6th suggests to me this is FYI.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay. And that was, other than some input from Jessica, I don't recall us reviewing it. This was primarily prepared by the VTA,
Yes.
not our own staff. Okay, I don't have any comments on it. Does anybody else have any
No.
comments to discuss?
Nothing from me.
Okay, so that was primarily a FYI item. So with that, I think we can move on. Liaison report. I don't believe the mayor pro tem is here tonight, so I don't think there's a liaison report unless anybody knows different.
Sorry about that. I apologize. I don't recall sending this to our mayor pro temp. I think I was wondering, I was
I
trying to
believe he
check
was
this.
on there. He was on the email that that Don forwarded to me just today.
Was he?
if I'm
Okay.
not mistaken.
Okay. But he is the liaison then. Okay. I'll take a note of that to make sure to add
Yeah.
him.
Let me
Okay.
double check. Actually, he wasn't on there. I'm incorrect. Although Steve was. Okay. Let's see. So commission reports. I usually report on the Los Gatos Streets Commission, which due to my travel, I wasn't able to attend either of the last 2 months, so I don't have anything to add there. And the VTA BPAC meeting, there's really nothing there of interest to this this committee. It was mainly just approving some policies, and it was quite uninteresting. So I don't really have anything to add there either. Staff report. Don, do you have anything else to add that you haven't already told us?
I do not. Thank you.
Okay, future agenda items. Well, first we agreed we're going to call a special meeting specifically to discuss the master plan. Do we need, typically we would put on the agenda the the road improvement plan that we talked about briefly earlier. Is that something that we should add to the agenda? Is there anything to discuss there or review? Any comment on that? Okay. Sounds like nobody feels that we need to discuss that since we've already seen it.
I'm sorry, Barry, or Commissioner, Mr. Chairman. I didn't hear what you were referring to.
Well, I forget what it's called. Our annual plan for resurfacing some of the streets. Pavement management program. So I apologize for forgetting what that was called. So that's what I was talking about. In the past, we've had it on the agenda once a year. And my question is, does it need to be on our agenda?
I think for the next meeting, not the special meeting, because a special meeting is just going to be targeted to one thing. But I think for our next December meeting, it might be nice to just have an update from staff on the pavement management program work and what's going on, because I think it's going to start soon. Just get an update on that. Should be done then, but actually, right.
You're referring to the MTC pavement management process where they hire a consultant and streets are evaluated and
the work that's being done this year.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know if the decision or there needs to be discussion on what is, in the queue for next.
Mm-hmm. But I guess what Don pointed out is, I think it's only once every, is it 2 or 5 years they go through and score everything?
Yeah, I think it's every 2 years, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, so maybe that we can briefly go through that. And what Doreen might have been suggesting, the status of the actual work that we're doing here in Monte Sereno. Is that what you meant?
There's a 2022 pavement improvement project, which is what's starting next week. And I believe there has been an annual project for doing street improvements somewhere. So, I would need to get a grip on that and can report back to you on that process. I don't think streets have been selected for the 2023 pavement improvement project, city dollars going into various kinds of overlays and seal coats or whatever. But I'll need to probably bug Jessica as well as looking in files to see, but I think, and I'll also find out when the MTC pavement management plan was last updated and where that will be going. So you
Yeah, I-
have some sense of both of those programs.
Yeah, I believe that was very recently updated. But I could be confused and that we haven't seen it. Okay, so that's one thing to put on the December agenda. I guess another thing is we briefly talked about a Highway 9 project that had stalled due to Caltrans. Is there any chance you could get us some more detail on that, Don?
I actually stumbled across something that may give you at least an interim dose of information. Fortunately, I put the document down, but let me see if I can. If I can take the liberty of reading this. 5-foot wide pedestrian path along northbound Highway 9. Upgrade the existing PED crossing at Greenwood with a PED hybrid beacon is not required. Was included in a grant application. No grant was awarded for this project, but the application from OBEG 3 can be found. She gave me a link. I think the city applied for a Caltrans encroachment permit. It was partially funded, $26,000 with Transportation Development Act money. But that doesn't tell me what exactly Caltrans did. Sort of put it in a desk drawer, as I understand it. But that's that's the information Jessica left for me on. BKF engineers had been doing some work on that, and they had actually submitted the permit, so I'll want to touch base with them. What I would suggest is that I get back to you either a non-meeting communication, just FYI, or at your December meeting.
Okay, that sounds good. I guess I would prefer the December meeting in case there's any discussion we want to have.
Sure.
Because I mean, I would encourage you to give us an FYI, but let's put it on the agenda for December because we can't discuss it over email.
Right.
And then I guess another thing to at least briefly discuss is the OBEG grant for Dave's Avenue. So that seems like that's three things I see to talk about in December: the pavement improvement, Highway 9, and Dave's Avenue.
Got it.
And does that seem reasonable? And can anybody think of anything else we need to talk about other than stuff that comes up between now and then?
No, I think that sounds good.
Okay.
Quick question.
Yes.
So I know we've been, sending e-blast to remind folks that, we have a vacant and we'll actually have 2 openings. Not sure if our current commissioner is wanting to reapply, but once we have those applicants presented at hopefully the next meeting in November, would that be something you guys want presented in your December meeting too? Because technically they would be starting in January, right?
Oh yeah.
As commissioners.
I think we do it in I think we do it in December.
Okay, but that's something that you guys want presented as well, right? The
Yeah,
applicants.
if that information is available, that would be great.
Yeah.
And, and also should we also talk about the chair for next year and see if anybody has any desire to be the chair. So let's add that. Okay, great. So that's five things we have already, although hopefully they'll be short. That sounds like the laugh of experience, Don. Anything else?
I'll mute in the future, Mr. Chair.
All right, if that is it, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn the meeting, and we will meet again next month for one topic, and we'll have a fairly good agenda for December.
And you'll reach out regarding dates, right? Or possible dates via email?
Yes, yes, yes,
Perfect.
definitely. Yeah, you'll hear either from me or Don.
Awesome.
Right.
Perfect.
To these emails, like the ones that we normally use?
Oh yeah, can we convert to using our regular emails, Don and Boise, our personal emails, just because we get so little information, so an email address that we only get something on once a month. It's just a challenge to check it.
Perfect. Yeah, I will just be checking in through that email to make sure I have the correct contact information for some other folks too.
Okay,
Perfect.
great. All right.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Sorry,
Good
I
night,
wasn't better
everybody.
prepared.
No worries. Good night.
No, good times. Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Good
Have
night.
a good night, you guys.